It's the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, back from some time off down in Texas. Um, we are going to be here with you for the next couple of hours, going over some sports topics of local, regional, and national, and still international importance. So stick around; it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to visiting with Chris Lee in the next hour as we talk a little college football. And with David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner in the next segment as we talk a little professional football. So a couple of guests I've spent a lot of time within press boxes over on West End back in another life, but looking forward to visiting with both of them. Also looking forward to getting an update from Wade, who again was out of pocket the last couple of days last week down in Texas. Wade, welcome back.
Good to be back. And we were discussing everything is bigger in Texas. I'm here to confirm, and everything is hotter in Texas. So it was like 103, 104 every day. Not a lot of shade, and I think even the shade.
We were hoping you were hydrating properly.
I was doing the best I can. The good news is I went to the CrossFit Games where folks are imbibing in basically two beverages, and that is water and coffee. And so the water was plentiful, and everybody was staying hydrated to the best of their abilities throughout the weekend. But I mean, man, 104, there ain't no running from that, really. I mean, what did somebody say? I saw a dog chasing a cat earlier this afternoon. This was a local telling us this, and he said, and both of them were walking, is what they said. That's how hot it was. Nope, neither one of them were even running. It was so hot down there. But yeah, glad to be back with everybody this week.
Well, when you come back to Tennessee and it's cooler, that kind of tells you something right there. So yeah. Glad to have you back. Glad that went well for you and was enjoyable and ready to get back in the swing of things. Now, we got we've had professional football. We got high school football at the end of this week. We got jamborees. Regular season right around the corner. So those last few days of break are really dwindling.
Yeah, coming down the stretch. And last week, we cranked up middle school here in Giles County. We had a really good showdown between Bridgeforth and Richland, two rivals. And it's like, whoa. This seems a little too early. But if you thought that was early, buckle up because, yeah, high school's in the final week of preseason as most teams will get ready to strap it up for real this time. They'll be getting ready for their week one game this time next week.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, be on the lookout because Wade and I, as if Main Street Sports Today isn't enough, Wade and I will be doing a weekly high school football show starting next week as we get you up to speed on the high school programs in southern Middle Tennessee, including Giles, Lawrence, and Murray County. So be sure and tune in for that starting next Wednesday. Time's undetermined, but we're thinking around 5 o'clock for about 60 minutes. That should probably be enough to get you informed and get you your fill of me and Wade. So looking forward to that. Also, Main Street Murray has a fall sports preview that will be in next Wednesday's paper, getting you up to speed on all of the local football teams as well as girls soccer, volleyball, golf, and cross country. So be sure and get that in the print edition of Main Street Murray next Wednesday, August 21st, ahead of those August 23rd football season openers. So, Wade, what are y'all doing in the way of previews down at the Citizen?
Yeah, we'll have our usual season previews of all of your area high school and middle school teams, Giles County, Richland. Also factor in South Giles, Bridgeforth, and Richland Middle. That'll be coming your way. Really, really excited about the programs we got this year. I mentioned that Bridgeforth and Richland already played last Tuesday. South Giles opened up with a win on Thursday. So a lot coming in, and it's going to be interesting because a lot of our middle school teams have featured some really prominent players that are now no longer there. And so those teams are trying to scramble to fill those void. But what that does mean is the high schools are getting a lot of newcomers that have a chance to kind of see where they fit into the mix. And so that's always kind of the fun part is seeing how those things shake out.
Always fun watching those kids kind of advance and progress and whether the impact that they've had at one level, translates. So that's always fun to kind of keep an eye on. So we'll be doing that here locally in Murray and Giles County. So be sure and look out for that. Again, big show. In addition to David BOCLAIR and Chris Lee, we'll be talking Little Braves as little as possible. The Astros benefited from you being in their airspace. Look like, Wade.
Yeah, they've been playing well, and I was hoping to make it work, but we just couldn't pull the strings. But as I was landing Wednesday, they were taking care of business in a big way, just a few miles from the area where I was staying, because they knocked off the Rangers, and then they've kind of been on a little bit of a heater here, kind of finding some of their form again. Won 7 out of their last 10. They're right there neck and neck. It's basically like 1 decimal point of difference between them and the Mariners at the moment in the standings, but they're playing well at the moment for sure. I'd like to think I had a big hand in that, but realistically, I probably didn't have much to do with that.
I understand. I hope I've not had anything to do with the Braves' woes of late, but I was there when they dropped a couple to St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, so maybe, I don't know. Anyway, speaking of Braves, Astros, with no further ado, let's go ahead and get to yesterday's results, this weekend's results, and today's schedule on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Buckle up, gang. Before we get into Monday's Rundown, I want to remind you that we are brought to you each and every single Monday by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today at 931-388-5831, or you can visit their website at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Major League Baseball scores of our interest from the weekend. On Friday, the Astros with a 8-4 victory over the Red Sox up in Boston. The Rockies edged the Braves 6-5. On Saturday, it was the Astros 5, the Red Sox 4. The Braves with an 11-8 win over the Rockies. Matt Olson going yard twice, including a grand slam. And on Sunday, the Astros finished off the sweep at Fenway Park, downing Boston 10-2. The Rockies, meanwhile, came back from an 8-2 deficit in the 8th to defeat the Braves 9-8. Sounds action over the weekend. It was Indianapolis 6, Nashville nothing on Friday. Nashville 3, Indianapolis nothing on Saturday. And again, Nashville 3, Indianapolis nothing on Sunday. So some solid pitching performances by both teams over the weekend over at First Horizon Park. Preseason NFL action this weekend over at Nissan Stadium. The Titans took care of business against the 49ers 17-13. Again, we'll be talking in the next segment with David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner a little bit more about what took place out there.
To the schedule we go. A couple games on the docket this afternoon. Major League Baseball action. The Astros are visiting the Rays. First pitch comes your way at 5:50. Game can be seen locally. And at 8:45 tonight, it'll be the Braves at the Giants. That game can be begins at 8:45 p.m. That'll be broadcast on MLB Network. Can also be seen on Bally Sports South. Once again, Astros at Rays at 5:50 and Braves at Giants at 8:45. That is today's schedule, and that is today's Rundown.
Your top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available until 6 o'clock, as well as their hand cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And NASCAR coming back from a 2-week layoff got some fireworks late up at Richmond as Austin Dillon claimed his first win in almost 2 years, much to the chagrin of Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, among others, because both of them got spun late in Dillon's quest for the checkered flag, which was successful on his part. And as you might expect, a little irritating on theirs. I hate to do that, but sometimes you just got to have it, Dillon said. And again, this was his first win since Daytona of 2022 back on August 28th. So, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked to Heather Williams of WCYB out of Johnson City. You know, we're coming down the stretch here. This was the first of 4 races remaining before the playoff field is set, and Austin Dillon was not in. Austin Dillon is now in. So, I mean, again, sometimes you got to have it, and that's what he did. Went out and did what he had to do. So, I mean, he's in the playoffs, but I'm not sure that Denny Hamlin or Joey Logano well, I am sure they're not very happy with him, and I don't know how that plays out here over the next bit, but went to overtime. Logano was in front. Dillon spun him. It's ridiculous that that's the way we race. Unbelievable. I get bumped and runs. I do that. I would expect that. But from 4 car lengths back, he was never going to make the corner. And then he wrecks the other car. He wrecks the 11 to go with it. What a piece of crap. The 11 car being Denny Hamlin. He's going to be credited with the win, but obviously he's just not going to go far. You got to pay your dues back on stuff like that, but it's worth it because they jumped 20 points in 20 positions in points. So I understand all that. There's no ill will there. I get it. I just hate I was a part of it. It would have been fine if it would have been fun if I was not one of the 2 guys that got taken out in the last corner. So, you know, we've seen things like this before. We've heard of things like this before, and these guys have long memories. So,
yeah, wouldn't be shocked. Little retribution, a little payback down the stretch, and you know, Dillon did what he had to do. It sounds like, and I love that they say, you know, hey, it would have been fine if I would have been a part of it. I mean,
there you go.
It kind of tells you all you need to know, right? I mean.
It's all about the personal interest.
Yep. And so if you're right there at the end, if you are Logano, obviously you're furious because you're thinking, man, I've worked so hard. I've got a great spot here. And after this restart, I got a really good chance to win this thing. And it's one thing if you kind of get beat, or it's one thing even if you kind of get bumped or, you know, spun a little bit. But, man, I mean, it looks and sounds like a really a little more than that. It sounds like Dillon just went, you know, full throttle and just said my way or the highway type situation. And there had to be some wreckage to be cleared there. And Logano and Hamlin kind of paid the price.
A little demolition derby there late down the back stretch. So, yeah, interesting stuff. But it seems that Dillon, with the win, I would think that clinches him a spot in the playoffs. I think that there were like 12 racers who had clinched by virtue of victories this season. So that should put him in the clear for a playoff spot with 3 races remaining. I'm sure we'll talk more about this with Heather Williams on Wednesday when she joins us, among other things. Wade, you missed the big announcement out of Bristol.
I heard binoculars are getting ready to be brought out.
Binoculars will, and they
Or
won't be
telescope.
optional, I don't think. Yeah, maybe even telescopes.
Telescope, depending on if you want some cheap seats or not. And a
Absolutely.
900-foot center field. I don't know if that is confirmed or not just yet. But.
A lot of inside the park home runs, I think,
Mhm.
when the Braves and Reds play up at Bristol in August. But yeah, we'll be talking to Heather a little bit more about that as well. Looking forward to that. So should be fun. Hey, let's go ahead and go to a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, we'll be talking little Titans, and we will be joined by David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner. So stick with us after this break. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
He shoots, and he scores!
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers. Putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Welcome back to the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. And it's time to talk a little Titans coming out of their preseason matchup, their opening preseason matchup Saturday night over at Nissan Stadium against the San Francisco 49ers. And to help us do that, we welcome David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner and of Believe in Titans podcast. DB.
Gentlemen, how we doing?
What's up? We're good. Where's the match, man? I'm looking for the match. I don't see the match.
The match is not a in-house sort of thing. It's an exterior affectation, I guess we'll call it.
Okay. I got you. How's everything?
Everything is good. Everything is really good. I am, usually mentioned, I appreciate it these days with the reborn Nashville banner. Not doing full-time sports these days, but at least not yet. We'll see how that goes. But keeping my toe very much in the water, if you will. So it's an exciting time that we got going on up there.
That's great. That's great. Obviously, that is a name that resonates with a lot of people in this area for a lot of reasons, and it's nice to see their journalistic efforts once again. So, and glad that you're a part of that. Saturday night, Brian Callahan's maiden voyage. Obviously, it's a preseason game, so make of that what you will, but still a lot to be gained from there all the way down, I would think. What did you see Saturday?
Well, it was interesting relative to the last few years under Mike Vrabel, just from the perspective that the starters played. Virtually all of the starters played who were healthy enough to do so, other than Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. So, from that perspective, they looked pretty good. Now, none of San Francisco's starters played. A lot of them are hurt, and other guys they just decided to hold out. So I think if you're the Titans, what you want to say, did our starters look better than their backups? And for the first quarter and one play, Titans outscored the 49ers 14-7. Will Levis completed 4 of his 5 passes, looked much more sort of patient in the pocket and wasn't trying to force the ball deep downfield the way he did last year. So from that perspective, you say, yeah, that's progress. Of course, afterwards, everybody was touting the win and saying, well, winning is a habit. You've got to start it now. That's all well and good. But I was in Dallas living and working in 1989, which was Jimmy Johnson's first year, when they go 3-1 in the preseason, and everybody's all excited and talking about, wow, look at what an impact Jimmy Johnson's making right away. And then they go 1-15 in the regular season. Right. And even more, more recently, more locally, you go back to the Titans in 2014 and 2015 under Ken Wisenhunt. They went 2-2 in the preseason each of those 2 years, and a combined 4-4, and then won 5 regular season games over those 2 years. So I think what it does, winning that game, it makes everybody feel good about coming to work today for the Titans. It gives, I'm sure, a certain energy in the building that maybe isn't there, even if you lose in the preseason. But does it tell you anything about what's coming in the regular season? I would say absolutely not.
Yeah, I always love to bring up the fact that the 2008 Lions went undefeated in the preseason and then went defeated in the regular season. So,
you can find examples of that all over the NFL. That's exactly right.
And so with that being said, other than maybe Levis and some other guys that you just mentioned, who else either stood out or maybe made a positive impression in your mind on an individual effort from Saturday?
For what it's worth, one of the guys I was really interested to see was Malik Willis. What a different coaching staff, a different perspective on his skill set, how that would look. And I thought he looked better than he has looked the previous 2 years. In that he looked much more comfortable in the pocket. When he did scramble, he wasn't running around just to run. He knew where his escape lane was, which I think was a big step forward. Now, am I saying that Malik Willis is ready to be a starter in the NFL? Absolutely not. But I thought he looked. I thought he's showing signs of improvement. It'll be interesting to see if it's enough for him to stay on the roster. The young cornerback. Otis Reese, who got a lot of playing time early because neither of the 2 starting cornerbacks, Chidobe Awuzie or L'Jarius Sneed, played in that game. I thought he was a guy who looked very comfortable, didn't look out of place. There was one deep ball where he could very easily have committed pass interference, and it feels like if I'm an offensive coordinator these days, I'm throwing a lot of deep balls because it almost feels like better than a 50-50 shot that you're going to get a pass interference call, right? And he stayed really patient as the ball was in the air. When the ball arrived, grabbed the arm, knocked it down. It was, for a team that has been trying to find sort of young depth cornerbacks in recent years. A guy like Trey Avery's getting another opportunity. I don't know that he's much better than he's been. I thought it was a really good start for Reese.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Reese because I wanted to ask you about Jarvis Brownlee. That's a kid who's gotten a lot of attention through camp.
I'm sorry, Mo. That's exactly who I was trying to think of. I went the wrong name. That's exactly 29.
Okay.
I got my numbers. I got my numbers crossed up. Sorry about that. Thank you for mentioning him. Yeah, that was the play I was talking about. That was Brownlee. And
okay, the kid out of Louisville.
Yeah, it was. He played terrific in that game, I thought.
Yeah, well, just kind of building again on his camp because there have been a lot of positives mentioned about him through the first portion of camp. So good to see him take that, from the class to the grass, as
it's
local
preseason
coach
for
likes
me
to
too,
say.
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We're all getting started. Yeah.
It's a bigger, back in my younger days, I by this point I would know all 90 players on the roster without fail, and it gets a little harder with each passing year.
That's too much. That's too much, especially considering that almost half of them are going to be gone by the time it matters anyway. So yeah, we're all good. But David, you talk about wins and losses in preseason, and it's hardly worth the wins and losses to keep up with it. But I would think for a first-year coaching staff like Callahan and these guys, again, getting used to the operations of everything and feeling comfortable with how all of that is flowing is a big takeaway from Saturday night.
Well, yeah, and especially when you're talking about a head coach who, one, has never been a head coach, and two, has never been a play caller, and is doing both of those things at once. You've got a defensive coordinator who's not been a defensive coordinator. You have a special teams coach who's not been the special teams coordinator. And Brian Callahan talked about it after the game, and he said there were a couple of plays where he felt like he was too slow getting the call in, and he needed to be better about that. He talked about listening in on the defensive conversations at points on the headset, and he felt the communication was good there. But I think that's, now you've seen other guys do it. You've seen a guy like Zach Taylor do it, who, of course, Brian Callahan worked under the last few years, go from not having either of those responsibilities to doing them both. And Taylor had his growing pains, but certainly seems very comfortable, very adept at it at this point. So, certainly it can be done, but I would think it's a lot to take on, and he's probably spent a lot of time thinking about how all that works. And you like to hear him say afterward, there were some things I could have done better, and I plan to do better in the future, but now I know. So, and that's kind of one of the things that's been refreshing about Callahan too, is his ego's a little smaller than his predecessors. And from a media perspective, it's been a nice change of pace, I guess, just to listen to the kind of the way he goes about his job.
Refreshing was kind of the word that I was getting ready to pull from. So yeah, it's and it's an interesting change, I would imagine, for you guys in the media corps out there at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, because it's not for lack of a better phrase, I guess, it's not as adversarial a situation as it was often the case.
Yeah, and to be clear, Mike Vrabel, it wasn't a dislike or a distrust of the media so much. I mean, he's a guy you could step to the side with and have a really good, interesting conversation about. But Mike Vrabel is one of these hyper competitive individuals, and what he was going to reveal, how much he was going to reveal, all that was all part of the game to him. It was a competitive situation, and he was trying to have the upper hand with the media in some way, shape, or form. And the first time Brian Callahan stepped to a microphone and said, "Let me talk about injuries," and he runs down injuries today. You could almost see everybody. Like nobody almost knew what to do. I think it was such a shock. But Callahan, and when I talk about Callahan's sort of lack of ego or smaller ego, you can go back to his introductory press conference in January, and I've always said, be careful of coaches who build their reputations with great quarterbacks, right? And I call it personally the Adam Gase rule, right? Like, who knew who Adam Gase was until he's the Broncos offensive coordinator when Peyton Manning becomes the quarterback out there, right? And then all of a sudden people are talking about Adam Gase like he's a head coaching candidate, and he turns out to be a terrible head coach at two spots, right? So Callahan obviously has comes in having worked with Peyton Manning, having worked with Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford and Derek Carr, and in his introductory press conference, he did not try to take any credit for anything that any of those guys did. And in fact, he said, I learned from being around those guys things that can help me in teaching a young quarterback like Will Levis right now. And I thought that was really interesting. You almost never hear that from a coach in that situation. And another thing with offensive guys is they tend to think, well, their playbook is the be all end all of football, and they're going to have a perfect game plan every game because their offense is what got them the job, right? And he was talking about that day that there are going to be games where we're going to have to find the answers. I assume that the answers are in our playbook somewhere, and there are going to be games where we have to dig and find them. And I thought that was kind of refreshing too. So it's always a crapshoot in the NFL when you make these coaching changes. But Brian Callahan certainly is an interesting guy and one that I've enjoyed sort of watching and seeing how things, seeing how he goes about his business so far.
David, I wanted to ask real quick. I wanted to ask about running back committee reps. Seem like very evenly split, and a lot of the NFL insiders were saying this truly could be kind of a timeshare platoon type system. What did you read, if anything, out of the running back workload this weekend?
Yeah, Tony Pollard looked good early on. He had he had some bigger plays than Tyjae Spears did, but it certainly, you look at what the Titans had been when Derrick Henry was here, and it was always you have Henry and then you have a change of pace back, and not like you're going to find a lot of guys like Derrick Henry to begin with, where you can say, oh, we'll have just two of those guys, but in Pollard and Spears, I think you have two guys who really do have similar skill sets, who you can sort of envision a 50-50 workload. Brian Callahan has said on numerous occasions, though, if somebody gets rolling, we're going to keep them in there and we're going to get them the ball. But I think you saw Pollard's time in Dallas, right? He was better as sort of a platoon with Ezekiel Elliott than he was sort of as the guy last year. So it makes sense that you would want to put him in that situation. And Spears is a guy who's still, kind of coming and developing in the NFL. You saw a lot of things you liked about him last year, but I think the good thing about that is you're going to be a lot less predictable on offense, right? With Derrick Henry in there, you knew chances are it was going to be a running play, and you're daring the defense to stop it, which is sometimes easier said than done when Derrick Henry's in there. I don't think there's any tell in terms of either one of these running backs being in the game at any point this year. And there'll be some snaps where they're both are out there. And I think those will be some really interesting and intriguing deals that they can draw up with those two.
For sure.
I didn't see much of the game Saturday night, Dave, but I did see Julius Chestnut had a nice run, I think, in the second half. Where do he and Haskins figure into things, do you think?
Yeah, it was preseason football for the most part, Mo. But that's an interesting thing. Haskins is a guy who had kind of with his injury and his suspension and the issues
Mhm.
he had last year, it was sort of become a forgotten man. And so he and Chestnut have sort of had this thing going on for the better part of 3 seasons now. Like who's who? I thought that Chestnut looked a little better, but had a little more opportunity than Haskins did. But I think I think Haskins looked a little rusty. Like there was one play you saw him with a little bit of a nifty footwork as a tackler came at him, and he got a few extra yards that some other guys might not have gotten. But then you saw him, I think it was the next play or 2 snaps after that, he took the handoff and sort of hesitated for a moment, trying to, there was just that sort of, wait a minute, where am I pressing the hole here? And that'll obviously go away with more reps. I would suspect, if it comes down to a choice between those two, I would suspect that Haskins offers more upside and probably has the edge from that perspective. But Chestnut's a guy who has performed lights out in the preseason the last couple of years. So he has a way of getting people excited about him at this time of year.
David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. David, obviously with last week's developments, offensive line becomes a little bit of a focus, and again, it is preseason football, but what were your observations with the ones up front Saturday?
They did fine. I didn't think Will Levis was running for his life back there. He certainly looked like he had a little more comfort in the pocket than he had at most points last year. There were the coaches didn't fool around when it was 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. They ran quarterback sneaks. They converted a couple of those, including one down at the goal line. So that all was good, but I think the line is still very much cause for concern, particularly when you're talking about how unsettled the right side of that line is following the retirement of Sadiq Charles last week. It's one of those things you keep hearing the name if you're paying attention to this team. People are talking about Devondre Sweat, the 2nd-round draft pick out of Texas, the defensive tackle, big man, and what a great camp he's having, and it's true, he is. But I keep flashing back to last year when at this time we were all talking about Arden Key, and oh my God, this guy was the steal of free agency, and he's going to have 15 to 20 sacks, and he's completely unblockable, and just look at this guy every single day, and it turned out, well, yeah, it's because he was going against left tackle Andre Dillard every day, and Andre Dillard couldn't block anybody, as it turned out. So as people are getting very excited about Sweat, I tell them, well, the interior of the line is not settled yet, and that could be a factor in why he looks as good as he does right now. So we'll have to, I'm not ready to anoint him Defensive Rookie of the Year just yet.
And David, that's always the balance of preseason. I've said that before, even at the high school level. If the offense has beaten the defense, if the defense has beaten the offense, I mean, how do you balance that? What does that mean? Does it mean your offense is really good or your defense is really bad, or vice versa? And you don't really have anything to balance it up with until you go play somebody else.
Yeah, and that's one thing people don't realize either in training camp, is that there are some days that are designed for the defense to win, right? Like there are some days that they're going to say, okay, we're going to throw 6 blitzes at the offense that they have not seen today, and we're not going to tell them they're coming. We're going to see if they can pick up a blitz, and then ultimately what's going to happen is there's going to be reports out of camp that day that, oh, the offense had a terrible day and Will Levis was sacked, or Will Levis threw balls into interceptions when he was being pressured, whatever, and they're going to talk about, should they be thinking about Mason Rudolph or whatever as a starting quarterback? And the fact of the matter is the defense was supposed to win that day. No coaches will never tell you that. Coaches probably won't even tell the players that half the time. But that's that if what you would really want to know is, hey, was it one of those days where they drew up these blitzes and the offensive line picked them all up and the offense looked great like that? That's what you really want to know. And coaches will never, ever, ever tell you about that stuff.
David, I'm curious. Obviously, Will Levis had some great moments, and I undoubtedly got a big eruption from the crowd when he scored. But what was the crowd like seeing Josh Dobbs back in Nissan for like the millionth time in a millionth different jersey?
There was a lot of 49ers fans there. I mean, we all know Nashville's a destination for any number of reasons, and we've seen it in recent years that opposing fans like to come here and will show up in decent numbers, sometimes great numbers depending on the opponent. I was really surprised at the number of 49ers fans, but Dobbs didn't get a pop really that I noticed or anything. I think hell, that guy gets around so much nowadays. I think the reaction is probably, oh, okay, yeah, of course Josh Dobbs is with the 49ers. He's been there, he's been everywhere. He's Roy Kent, right? He's here, he's there, he's every effing where. So and that's it's just like, oh, okay, that's where Josh Dobbs is now. And he looked like Josh Dobbs. It was kind of fun to watch him, and especially when he got the chance late, and you thought, well, maybe he might even make a little magic here at the end of the game and get them down the field. But of course, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I was unaware that San Francisco was his new destination until just prior to kickoff.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people had the same reaction, honestly.
Yeah.
Where in the world is Josh Dobbs, huh?
Yeah,
100%.
David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today. You can find him at BOCLAIR Sports on that social media platform, however you care to refer to it, X or Twitter. I'm an old guy, so I call it Twitter. But David, we appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Oh, thanks for having me, boys. I appreciate it. Happy football season, everybody.
Absolutely. And be sure and tell your lovely wife we said hello.
I will do so. Yes, indeed.
All right. Hey, when we continue from the Lee Company studios here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we'll be talking a little baseball because, as Wade likes to say, we are contractually obligated to do so. Stay tuned.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
August 12, 2011. It was an eventful day at Turner Field as Bobby Cox's number 6 was retired and Dan Uggla hit 2 of the Braves' 5 homers off Cubs starter Carlos Zambrano in just 4 1/3 innings to extend his hit streak to 32 straight games. Freddie Freeman, Chipper Jones, and Jose Costanza all went yard off Zambrano as well. After Freeman and Uggla went back-to-back in the 5th, Zambrano was ejected for brushing Chipper back twice. Zambrano left the stadium and was subsequently placed on the disqualified list by the Cubs. Mike Minor struck out 6 and 5 2/3 as the Braves won 10-4. That was this day in Braves history. That was a good day.
Eventful day.
Very much so. You retire the number of the manager who I think has the 4th most victories all time in Major League Baseball history. One local guy extends his hitting streak to 32 games. Another local guy gets the win. Zambrano walks off, never to be seen again. I mean, that's a big day. It's a big day. A big day in a positive way for the Braves, as opposed to many of the last few days. And, you know, if you're a Braves fan, you can answer the question, what's worse, getting beat 16-7 and having a position player on the mound, or giving up 7 in the 8th to lose 9-8? Because they've done both in less than a week.
Oof.
Yeah. Not a great time for Braves country right now. I think they are 7-14 over their last 21 right now. Still holding on to the number 3 spot in the wild card, amazingly enough. Now, how much longer that'll be, I don't know, because the pitching staff took another hit today. AJ Minter is going on the injured list with a hip situation. Things are just going from bad to worse for this Braves team right now. And people keep wanting to use the phrase rock bottom. If you are a Braves fan, I would suggest that you delete that phrase from your vocabulary. Because it seems like every time somebody says this is rock bottom, the Braves say, hold my beer.
Oof. Yeah. Just, when you think it can't get any worse, it inevitably can.
So, yeah, I mean, and you felt like maybe they had snapped out of it with that Saturday 11-8 win over Colorado. Again, Olsen with a couple of home runs, including the grand slam. He's been on a little bit of a tear here of late. They get up 8-2 yesterday Jorge Soler hit a couple of home runs. I believe Ozuna had one yesterday as well. So, I mean, it felt like maybe the offense was coming around. You got a nice start from Spencer Schwellenbach as the rookie continues to be solid. And then all of a sudden, the bullpen, which has generally been, solid, if not spectacular, they caved in yesterday. Luke Jackson was bad. Joe Jimenez was worse. I mean, it might have been magnified a little bit because it was in Colorado, but at the same time, Colorado is not a good team. They improved to 44-75 with that win. You get them down by 6 with 6 outs to get, you got to get those outs. And again, Luke Jackson gives up 4 in 2/3 of an inning. Jimenez gives up 3 in 1/3 of an inning. It was bad. And there were no Olympics to flip it over to. So it was even worse.
Yeah, that's when baseball will test your soul because, man, there is nowhere to go. And you can just see it kind of coming like a freight train. And sometimes you just can't get out of the way.
Can't get out the way.
No, that is an abysmal effort from the bullpen, like you say there, because Colorado, they've had some weird games. I've watched a few of their games this year. They've had some crazy comebacks, but that is a team, like you said, they improved to 44 wins. They are the 3rd worst team in the bigs. So, I mean, you have to win that game if you kind of want to take yourself really serious.
Yeah. And so yeah, you have to ask, do you want to take yourself serious? So now it's on to San Francisco and
big series.
And the no-hit wonder Blake Snell. Chris Sale goes to the mound for Atlanta in this one. Yeah, this is a big series. After you've just dropped what, 2 of 3 to the Rockies? Is that what you did? Yeah. You dropped 2 of 3 to the Rockies after getting swept in Milwaukee. After dropping the last 2 of 4 at home against Miami. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You've lost 7 of your last 8 going into this 4-game series against San Francisco. And they feel like they've got something to play for all of a sudden. So
that NL West is getting wild, and San Francisco's right in that mix. That's in the division. And then, like you said, the wild card is fixing to be a crazy, crazy race down the
It really
stretch,
is.
It looks like. That 3rd spot in particular.
Which is the one that Atlanta holds right now. So we shall see. Again, though, things looking up for your Astros. They are sitting atop the AL West after sweeping Boston, extending their win streak to 5 straight after taking 2 of 3 from Texas before they went on the road.
Yep.
Valdez, who threw a no-hitter his last time out. I'm sorry, 8 2/3 no-hit ball in his last time out. He's 11-5 with a 3.46 ERA. Leads the Astros out against Tampa Bay tonight. That's a 5.50 start down there. Taj Bradley 6-6 with a 3.07 going for the Rays. And again, Houston's starting to come around a little bit.
Yeah, seem to be playing pretty well. They can maybe start clicking a little bit. They'll get some relief as the weeks kind of go along in terms of their rotation and their bullpen. So that could be nice. But yeah, they're sitting there, and I thought once they kind of maybe, you got to give Seattle a little credit, because I thought once they kind of hopped in front of Seattle that Seattle might wilt a little bit, but they're not really showing any signs of going away. So Houston's got to take all these games pretty serious going forward. And the Rays, they're no slouch. I mean, they're a game over 500, and that's playing in the AL East. So this should be a fun little set. And if Houston can win a couple here, yeah, maybe keep the positive vibes rolling. That'd be clutch.
Absolutely. No positive vibes in the south side of Chicago. They stopped that losing streak at 21 with a 5-1 win over Oakland last week out at Oakland, but they have since lost 3 straight. They are 28-91, and they've got the Yankees coming to town starting tonight. Goodness gracious. I don't think it's even a question at this point with what they have played 119 games, so they've still got 43 games remaining. They've got 43 games remaining. If they lose 29 of those, then they are going to match the Mets for the most losses in a major league season with 120. So unless they go 15-28, and that is a winning percentage that I don't think they've seen at any point. 348, that 349 would be the winning percentage that would prevent them from losing 120 games at this point, and their current is 235. So
yeah, it feels like they are streaking toward that mark, and you know, you snap one streak, but now you just get a chance to just start a brand new one. It's the way you got to look at things. You know, a chance to, you know, maybe go on another 20-game losing skid.
Goodness gracious, man! I mean, that's got to be tough to be that, as people keep using, historically bad.
Yeah, I mean, it is horrific.
What's crazy? You know, we've talked about Eric Fetty on this show on numerous occasions from his days with the Washington Nationals. At the time he was traded, he had 7 of the White Sox 27 victories.
Wow. Yeah, there's not a lot. There's nothing positive to come out of that, because they didn't make any major deals to yield kind of any big prospect haul. I mean, you're just
down
really,
the line. Yeah, they just
really
sat on it,
going through the motions with them, and it is not a good roller coaster to be on right now.
Yeah, I mean, they were in a situation where, okay, we're bad now, but we don't have to be bad later if we get rid of some of these folks. I mean, how much we're not going to get any better in 2024, but we can move some folks and try to make ourselves better later. And they didn't do that either. So, I mean, I don't know what the thought process was or is as far as that goes. Obviously, Garrett Crochet had some contractual issues that kind of made him hard to move. But yeah, it's odd the way they approached the trade deadline and what they did or did not get done. And it feels like they really did themselves a disservice. But they are, as you said, streaking toward history and not in a good way. Mm-hmm. And certainly we'll be keeping an eye on that. So hey, let's go to a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios for hour number 2, we'll talk a little Olympics. Stay tuned after the break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And Wade, the Olympics have ended. No more Flavor Flav. No more Snoop Dogg. And I'm feeling a little empty.
Yeah, I mean, breakdancing was just getting going, and here we go. It's already over.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Breakdancing will not be going forward for 2028, and I think it may be just as well.
It feels like, it was so fun these last couple of weeks. Whether you were tuning in for a sport that you really knew all the ins and outs of, or you're just locked into the gold medal match in table tennis. It was something that you could just flip on at any given time and find something. And in the blink of an eye, it's all done.
Table tennis, handball, field hockey, the rugby sevens. I mean, there was a lot going on, and it was all pretty exciting. Hey, shout out to the U.S. women's soccer team for their performance, and Mallory Pugh Swanson getting it done for them in the gold medal match. I saw a number, man. Of the U.S.'s 120 total medals, I think women athletes were responsible for like 65% of those. I'm looking at an article here on Yahoo Sports. Of Team USA's 40 gold medals, 26 were won by women, who won more than half of USA's medals in an Olympics marked by historic gender parity, it says. So,
some good stuff. And the U.S. women, they'll be coming to Geodis Park in Nashville in just a couple of weeks here. For an international friendly versus Iceland. So it was good to see them back. They took a tumble at the World Cup last go around, and the Olympics on the women's side is treated much more at a high level than the men's soccer tournament. So it was a tournament that mattered, kind of like basketball, like we'll get into in a second. It was a tournament that mattered, and the U.S. ladies getting that win after crashing out in the World Cup 2 years ago. This was a nice bounce back for them with a nice younger crop of players that seems like they're seamlessly kind of going to carry the torch for several aging stars that were not participating this go around.
13 Team USA athletes won multiple gold medals. 10 of those were women, including Simone Biles, Katie Ledecky, Gabby Thomas, among others. And that's interesting. I mean, you're talking gymnastics, swimming, and track and field right there. So the dominance was across a number of different disciplines and sports. So it's fun to see. But yeah, the women kind of saved their best for last, or maybe not so much, with that 67-66 win over France yesterday morning. Turned it over a lot, missed a lot of bunnies, but managed to pull it together just enough at the end to win. And you feel a little bad for France's Gabby Williams, because I don't know if, in her making sure she got a shot up, that she kind of lost track of where she was on the floor or what. But I mean, needed a 3 there, got a 2, and was clearly inside the arc when she put it up. And, it would have been a game time basket had she been behind the arc, but there was no question that it was a 2-pointer, and they pushed Team USA to the very brink. But the USA women with their 8th straight Olympics gold medal, that's dominance.
Yeah, and you can't say enough about how dominant they have been. And I mean, what is the stat that we saw last night? If you were born after
1992,
if you're born after 92, you've never.
If you're under the age of 31,
there it is. There it is. If you're under 31, you've never known anything other than them just absolutely clobbering everybody. And in some regards, it was kind of refreshing to see them with a touch of not desperation, but a touch of just having to go out there
suspense
and really battle for it. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, though, we've got Asia Wilson. Nobody else does. That's really kind of what you could maybe make the case that it comes down to, because that was a great game and it was a hard-fought victory for the U.S. But by and large, they go undefeated yet again, and they are the class of global basketball.
61 straight Olympic game victories for the USA women. And, not a vintage Asia Wilson game. Again, when you talk about layups missed and that kind of thing, she kind of struggled a little bit finishing through. And credit France, because they brought the physicality to that ball game. And I'm not sure that Team USA was necessarily ready for that. They shot 34% from the floor, 17% from 3. Asia finishes with 21 points. I would love to know what she shot. I'm looking for a box score as we speak. But I mean, again, when the chips are down, she is Asia Wilson, and we do have her. And as Gino Auriemma would say, and you don't. So she's the best thing going in women's basketball at this moment, for sure.
She was fantastic. And then Copper was great as well for the U.S. She had 12 points. Plum had 12. So, I mean, it was a solid effort yet again from the ladies, even though France took them a little deeper into the night than I think most folks would have ever dreamed, really. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. gets the gold, which is a great way to kind of close out this Olympic Games.
I wonder how much of a bump France got from, home court.
If it was anything like the men's game, I mean, you'd assume a little bit, because the crowd for the men's game was just bonkers. And I would imagine that they showed up and tried to give them a little bit of an effort. Like you said, the physicality is probably what certainly caught me off guard a little more than anything. And so, yeah, you mentioned Asia Wilson. She finished 6-14 from the floor. She went 9 of 12 from the free throw line, but she was 6 of 14 from the floor. So not a great effort shooting wise, but
13 boards.
Yeah, 13 rebounds. I mean, and 4 blocks to go with that. I mean, she was the difference maker. And in a game, kind of like we saw with the men's, in a game where it comes down to the end, you have to have that one player that can really take over or be the difference. And for the U.S., thank goodness she was wearing stars and stripes.
Absolutely. You mentioned Kalia Copper coming off the bench with 12 points. Kelsey Plum coming off with bench with 12 points as well. The Aces impact was felt in this one. And if this game, the way France played, perhaps over their head, but certainly, again, pushed Team USA to the limit. If this game, the way it was played, the way it wound up, if that doesn't help grow the game, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that was as good a women's basketball contest as you're going to see. And if you didn't see it, you missed out. On the men's side, Wade, if you won a gold medal but you didn't play, would it still mean something to you?
You know, flags fly forever, baby. That medal is going in my trophy case just the same. I'll tell you that much.
I just went blank on his first name. But obviously there was a lot of conjecture over the course of the games about Tatum's playing time or a lack of. And I think he played early in the gold medal game against France. I don't think he played in the second half. But, you know, how much of a mark does that leave? But there's some thought going forward that this might, you know, cloud his view about whether or not he wants to play in 2028 for Team USA.
Yeah, this is the weirdest and wildest kind of subplot after two electric games back to back from the U.S. First versus Serbia and then versus France in the championship. Everybody's talking about Tatum because that's just kind of the way the world works, and this is a wild situation because, I mean, this is a guy that won the NBA championship and then subsequently wins the gold medal all within the span of about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's kind of feeling some type of way one way or the other about the guy. I did find this stat interesting. You know, say what you will about his playing time, say what you will about all that. He went 0 of 16 in his jump shots for his whole Olympic tenure for the U.S. That includes the exhibition games. My man was 0 of 16 from the floor. So it wasn't like he was just absolutely lighting it up and then all of a sudden just got yanked from the games. So
0 of 16?
0 of 16 from the floor. You know, his dad and his parents are getting involved and tweeting and talking about things. I mean, it's just a very, very odd situation for a guy that has won the title in the NBA and then wins the gold, and we're randomly kind of having this public discourse about him rather than really kind of about the status of everything else.
That's tough. I mean, that's really when you throw that out there, and that's the first time I'd heard that number, but I mean, that makes it really tough for you to complain about not getting any burn when.
And he wasn't lighting it up. I mean, you know, and he had 2 points in the gold medal game versus France. I mean, he got a little tick. ESPN box score credits him with 11 minutes. So I mean, that's more certainly than he had been playing. But I mean, on the other end of the spectrum. So the funny thing is, we're having this debate about Tatum, but on the other end of the spectrum, Halliburton, who literally played no minutes for vast stretches of this entire thing, had the epic Instagram post last night. He said, "I feel like the guy at the group project that got an A, no one that didn't really contribute anything.
Didn't do anything.
And he's
didn't do anything and got an A.
He's having a blast." That's kind of the role and kind of hope that you have for these one or two guys that don't get a lot of the minutes to kind of just sit back and enjoy it. Instead, Tatum is kind of in this weird discourse. Even saying he's going to reevaluate whether or not he's going to play in 2028 and stuff like that. I mean, it's just very odd all around.
It really is. I mean, and when you look at again the makeup of this roster and who your lead horses were, and goodness gracious, Steph Curry, stop it. Um, I mean, who did you necessarily want him to play in front of? That's kind of my fallback when you're talking about all area teams and that kind of thing. When you tell me that somebody needs to be on it, well, who do we need to take off? Who did not need to be on the floor in order for Jason Tatum to be out there?
No, I mean there's nobody realistically you could take off. I mean, Durant started and played 31 minutes. LeBron obviously in the point guard extraordinaire role was flawless in this
Right.
Olympic Games. Booker was a very unsung hero in many regards, offensively and even defensively, picking up guys full court almost every trip.
And
And
he
then
was not
Curry-
and Booker was not 0 of 16 on his jump shots.
No. And then Curry, obviously, with a virtuoso performance, even by his standards, the last two games. So, I mean, the minutes are limited. And the only other guy is Holiday, who is a just dog defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Tatum, I mean,
Embiid, I mean,
well,
I don't
Embiid
know.
had flashes of brilliance. He played maybe one of the best games of his international career, brief international career with the United States versus Serbia. And I mean, there were moments where, I mean, the bad part is you would hope, the old school person, you would just hope that, Tatum would just accept it and just kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of, like I said, the parents getting involved and just everything about this is just icky. And in an alternate universe, what you're doing is you're hoping that Tatum and Brown are sharpening their knives and saying, all right, USA basketball, Brown is sitting there just patting his chair, waiting on Tatum, saying, all right, I've been here waiting back in the United States for you to get back home. We're about to show everybody
Let's go
when
to
we
work.
run it back again this year. So
Mhm.
that will be the fascinating part, to see if there is any sort of carryover into the regular season in terms of these guys maybe playing with an extra chip on their shoulder.
A little additional motivation is just what everybody wants for the Celtics, huh? So
Absolutely. And one more thing, and Curry obviously goes absolutely nuclear versus Serbia, single-handedly wins in the game. And then the last shot of his international career is arguably the greatest three-pointer he's ever launched. Double team, shot clock running down.
3 arms in his face, all taller than him, and he just launches, man. And I saw him getting ready to shoot it, and I'm like, he's not going to shoot that, is he? Yeah, he is. And not only is he going to shoot it, he's going to drain it. Yeah.
He had a real dud in terms of scoring the first several games for this team. He almost, just with those 2 games alone, stole the MVP award from LeBron. They still end up giving it to LeBron, I guess, for the duration of the tournament. But he
had an argument.
He had an argument. I mean, it was very compelling after they wrapped up yesterday. And LeBron did fantastic throughout the course of the tournament. He showed you that in short bursts, he can still be one of the best that is out there to do it. And that was fantastic. And so it was a very, very fun tournament. We go undefeated yet again. France, a worthy champion. If you're into, motivation, Wemby, after the silver medal is placed on him, he says, everybody should be ready. And they're like, does this mean international or NBA? He said, everybody.
Yes.
I mean, so buckle up. He is going to be brilliant to watch the next couple of years. And, it's going to be fun. I think this was a great tournament. And just when you think the U.S. can't get any more fun next year, just wait till Bronny James is on the 28 team. We got Bronny to look forward to now, who was in the crowd like a good teammate. He was in the crowd supporting his teammates, LeBron and Anthony Davis yesterday or Saturday. So just think of all the fun that we still have to come for this U.S. team here.
Stop it.
Well, that was not the reaction I was anticipating.
Stop it. Stop it. Shout out to Chattanooga's Olivia Reeves, who won the women's weightlifting competition, the first U.S. gold in weightlifting since 2000.
First UTC Olympic medalist, I believe. First Olympian, I think I read, from UTC ever, which was kind of neat. U.S. had a couple of solid weightlifting performances in the Olympics.
Yeah. Again, they finished with 126 total medals, 40 gold. Mark, you want to toss up the count real quick before we go to break?
Just don't play that music, whatever you do.
126 total medals, 40 gold, 44 silver, 42 bronze. They were tied with China for the most golds. They had the most silvers and bronze of anyone. China second with 91. Great Britain was 65. So quite the performance for the U.S. Over this past couple of weeks in Paris, and really fun to see. I actually set my alarm for 8:15 yesterday morning to get up and watch the women. And for people that know me, that's an accomplishment, because me being up at 8:15 on a Sunday morning that's not a thing. And so Jody's like, "Why is your alarm going off?" It's like, "Well, I got to get the
We
U.S.
got ball,
women."
baby.
Exactly. This is serious stuff here. So, yeah, that was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. I think I probably paid more attention to the Olympics this year than I have in a long time, and it was worth it. So, congrats to Team USA for their performance, and to these other athletes as well. And I don't know enough about the Jordan Childs situation to get into it, but it sounds ugly, and it's getting uglier. And it sounds like the U.S. Olympic Committee is really supporting her in this situation. And when some stuff becomes clear enough for me to understand it, we can talk a little bit more about it, but it doesn't sound good. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios here on the Monday Mirror, we'll talk a little college football. The AP preseason top 25 came out earlier today, and we will chat with Chris Lee of Southeastern XX. Stay tuned.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, here on the Monday Mirror. And we are now joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 to talk a little college football, because the Associated Press released its preseason top 25 earlier today. And Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama are your top 5. Now, if you've been under a rock for the last 3 years, and that means that there are 3 Southeastern Conference teams and 2 Big Ten teams in the top 5. And geography wouldn't necessarily lead you to believe that, but that's the new world that we're in, and that's why we didn't know if it was Southeastern 14 or Southeastern 16 for Chris. But Chris, welcome to the show. Always enjoy getting you on. As you peruse through this top 25 and you see 8 Southeastern Conference teams in it, it's not really much of a shock, is it?
I think it's 9, and I think they're all in the top 20, aren't they? Let me make sure I got my math right. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss.
That's 4.
Missouri is 5. LSU is 6. Tennessee is 7. Oklahoma 8, and A&M is 9.
I think I missed Oklahoma, actually. That's.
Well, I think a lot of people do that on habit.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. So 9 in the top 25. And as you said, all actually in the top 20. So yeah, I stand corrected, and it probably won't be the last time I get corrected on how many SEC teams there are. So, but when you look at that roster, it's almost to be expected, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you want to go a step further, you got 4 SEC teams in the top 6, and I don't think any of them are deserving. Ole Miss, of course, number 6. But I mean, this is the way college football is heading. You got 2 leagues that are just dominating everything, and the ACC and the Big 12 still have a little bit of a seat at the table too. And then everybody else, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, you look at again the rest of this, like you said, the ACC has Florida State at 10. They've got Clemson at 14. Miami at 19. North Carolina State at 24. And very similar response for the Big 12. So it's where you kind of knew things were going, but at the same time, to actually see it right there in front of your face, it really is the SEC and the Big Ten and everybody else, kind of.
Yeah, it is. That's where it's been heading for a while. I don't necessarily like it. There's a lot of things in college football I don't like right now, but I'll tell you what, the upshot is made for a better product, Mo. I mean, this is like, it's becoming like the NFL. It's headed that way. Again, last year, I look at the playoff thing. Used to be like you knew who the top 2 teams would be. And then it was like, well, 4 is enough or more than enough. But last year, again, you had Ohio State and Georgia that were number 1 in the rankings in November. Neither of them made the playoffs. I think that points to parity. Again, I don't like the way that it's been made, but I do like some of the upshot of it. And I think you get more parity across the board than we've had in a long time. I mean, Georgia's going to be the favorite to win it, but I don't think it's a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you feel like any of that top 4 in particular could be number 1. And I saw somebody asking on Twitter last week, how many playoff teams does the SEC get? And 5 seems to be the number. And I don't think there's any question that they get 5, is there? I mean that's a minimum, right?
Who knows? We got to let it play out. I mean, you got the whole. I think some of these games this year are just fascinating. I think there's going to be a lot of game. Like it seems like a lot of Saturdays in the SEC in the past, it's been like, okay, there's one, maybe two great games. I mean, maybe if somebody pops up and has got Alabama in their building and they're having a heater of a year like Tennessee did a couple of years ago, maybe that's an interesting game. Or maybe you get an Ole Miss and a Mississippi State where both are in the top 10 like we did a decade ago. But mostly it's a lot of weeks where you're like, okay, you can have.
Let's get to next week.
Yeah, and you could say, all right, who's going to win these games? And 80% of them, you don't have to give it 2 seconds worth of thought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be like that this year. And that's the thing that I think I like about it. You got 9 teams. Like if you're looking, and I'll pull this up just to make sure I'm not remembering this wrong, but I'm kind of keeping I run a little thing where there's a few polls I like SP Plus, FPI, where they're like, this team is this many points above average. And it's useful if I want to just say, hey, what would happen if you matched up, Michigan and Oklahoma in the playoff? Who would be a favorite? I like to do that. But I think when I ran that, and it's a composite of like 3 different rankings that I like, I think you had 8 SEC teams in the top 16. So, we're talking about the SEC getting 5. If you believe the data, I mean, it's more like, no, you and I both know that is not going to happen. That's absolutely not going to happen. People would scream bloody murder, even if it's deserved. But the point being, that's where the week-to-week thing, I think, is going to be very interesting because, somebody can win a couple of games by a field goal, and that's the difference between, 10-2 and making the playoffs and 8-4 and just kind of a yawn of a year. I think it's going to be that kind of a season.
All right.
Chris, I'm curious. It seems like Georgia, obviously, and Texas are your kind of superpowers, if you will, from the SEC. What do you see really, or what does your gut tell you to expect out of Alabama this year? They have a wild schedule, including a random sneaky game at Wisconsin earlier in the year. What does Alabama speak to you this year in your mind?
To me, and look, I may sound like an idiot later. You may want to clip this, and I'll be like, man, that's way wrong. But,
Mark, write
this
down.
Yeah, but I mean, but that kind of plays into the point I'm about to make, right? Because like if you look on one hand, okay, and you say the running back room, Justice Haynes is probably running back 1. He ran for 168 yards last year. Jamarian Miller probably running back 2. He ran for 201. Their receiving room, their leading receiver in terms of what he did last year was Jeremy Bernard, who played at Washington and I'm not going to say he was an afterthought behind the dudes they had, but 419 yards. That's the leading thing they've got in terms of their returning receivers. Offensive line, pretty good, although depending on who you ask. But, I mean, they got a potential couple All-Americans in Booker and Brailsford, and they got Caden Proctor, man, the left tackle. He could also be an All-American. So, offensive line, good place to start. Oh, and Jalen Milroe. On the defensive side, you look at their defensive line, and they've got some good players like Tim Keenan and Tim Smith, but it's not, if you want to go way back, Curry and Copeland or any of the multitude of guys that Saban put in the NFL. Defensive backfield, got a great safety in Malachi Moore. Got a transfer from Michigan, Keon Sabb, who's pretty good. But their corners, they're going to be playing a lot of freshmen maybe. And Damani Jackson, USC, who was good, but I don't think he's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Here's the point I'm making, okay? In the past, Alabama's teams have jumped off the page with names. I mean, there's times their running back room was Henry and Ingram, and their receiver room was that bunch they had with Judy and those guys and Devontae Smith back when in the 2020 year. The defense had, a Lombardi Award winner or something. It's not that team. At the same time, you look up and down the list, and they got a bunch of guys that were top 50 recruits who've waited their turn. And so, like, if those guys pop, I mean, that's what usually happens, right? Those guys bust out and do something. Yeah. That's usually how it goes, but they haven't done it yet. And, oh, by the way, they got a new coach. So it's a new system. It's a lot of new there. Now, having said that, Coach this year has got a higher winning percentage as a college coach than Nick Saban had. So Kalen DeBoer has done pretty well for himself. And I know that was like all over the map, but that's kind of my point, is that there's some things that, like, if you say, hey, Alabama won the national title, you would point to all those things and say, well, of course Alabama did. But if you look back and say, hey, they lost a game or two, they shouldn't have, they missed the playoffs, you can look back at it and say, well, these guys were talented on paper, but they hadn't done it yet. And I think that's what makes them really interesting. You just don't know how it's going to go till they play ball. I mean, I suspect they're going to be pretty good, but there's a lot of unknown there for Alabama.
And then I was going to say real quick, if some of that unknown, what is the ceiling? Does Alabama's ceiling still potentially equate national title in your mind if things break a certain way, or are they still just shy of that in your estimation?
Well, I mean, they're still top 5 by most people, top 10 at the worst. That's a playoff team. Again, last year, you had the 4 teams that made it. The competition was good in the playoffs, and then you had 2 more that, Georgia was the best team in the country, didn't make it. It feels to me like a year. A lot of the computers have got Georgia a good, 3 to 6 points ahead of the field. We'll see how that goes, but other than that, it feels like a year to me where you got a lot of teams that could win it going in.
Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Chris, for as active as Ole Miss was in the transfer portal and with NIL, what does it say that they're still behind Alabama with all the question marks that Alabama has?
I'm not sure I'd put them behind Alabama. I mean, if you asked me to power rank them, I'd probably put Ole Miss too. I mean, and I think the difference for them, they've always had offense, but the defense, they landed so many dudes in the portal. Princely, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name, from Florida, but you know who I'm talking about, Walter Nolan. They landed some good defensive backs. I mean, it's a defense that across the board, where it's a secondary, their linebackers, their line, they got a lot of all SEC type candidates. I think that's the difference for them. They've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of ball at a lot of places. You give me star power, you give me old, you give me a great schedule, which I like. Nobody's got a great schedule, but relative to the rest, theirs is pretty good. I think they're going to be there in the playoff. It would take them probably getting upset a time or two, but a lot of people are focused on the schedule because that gives them a chance, but I think they're legitimately that good.
No Bama, no Texas definitely helps them on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams would kill for that, right?
Yeah.
No Bama, no Texas, but also no Quinshon Judkins either.
Yeah, they'll go committee this year, and they've got some good backs. It's not, I don't think it's Quinshon Judkins, but I'll tell you what they've got. They got 3 receivers who could be in the running for all conference and an All-American tight end. And if you're just okay at running back, you'll be fine with that scenario.
There we go. Chris, is there anyone that we're not? Is Missouri 11 good, or are they just kind of riding last year?
Well, and again, I wonder when these get put together, how much of this is, are we power ranking teams? In other words, throw the schedule out, just give me the best 25 teams if you play them on a neutral field who wins. Or are we factoring the schedule in, which a lot of people have put Missouri in the playoff. But because, don't get me wrong, Missouri's good, but they've also got probably the easiest schedule in the league. Where I'm a little concerned, I thought their secondary last year was really good. And they landed the Pride kid from Clemson as a transfer. That's going to help. But I think they lost a lot. They bring back Joseph Charleston at free safety, but they lost a couple of corners. They lost a really good linebacker, Tyron Hopper. They lost a first-round defensive lineman. No, again, they reloaded in the portal. They got some other good players. But I'm just not sure. And they were my team that I liked. I thought they were the most slept-on team in the league a year ago, and I ended up being right about that one. And I'm not right about a lot, but I got that one. But my point is, I'm not sure their defense. I know they lost their coordinator too. I'm not shocked if they're in the playoffs, but if they're not, I'm not. I think I just probably told you why.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. When you look at this top 25 and then you look down here at others receiving votes, and you see another couple of ACC teams right there at the top at Louisville and Virginia Tech, and another one in SMU. But I mean, if you're me and Wade, and you have graduated from a Group of 5 school as we have, there's not a whole lot to hang your hat on. You've got Liberty down there, you got Boise State down there. It's this new world order is going to be even tougher on your G5s, it feels like.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a G5 team in there in the top 25.
No, not in the top 25.
State, yeah, I mean that, and one of them's going to get in the playoff, and that's the part that I hate. And I get that we're living in SEC country and the product is great, but I mean, as someone who had a nephew that played in the Mountain West and I enjoyed watching them play, I kind of hate to see that part of things. You wreck the rosters of those teams, the offseason, just plunder and pillage. I think, yeah, I mean, at the top, it's as competitive and as great as it's ever been, but that's one of the things about how this has been put together that I'm not crazy about.
Yeah, it's tough. Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Always a pleasure when we can get him on. And Chris, we appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, we will talk to you. Hey, when we continue here on Main Street Sports today, we will wrap things up. The final segment is the grab bag. So stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
He shoots, and he scores!
Today presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It's our final segment of the Monday Mirror. It's the grab bag. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, Wade was out of pocket the last portion of last week out in Texas at the CrossFit Games. Wade, was there something out there that we need to talk about?
Man, yeah. Unfortunately, some real tragic news that started at the very beginning of the games last week as Lazar Dukic, 28-year-old competitor from Serbia, passed away, drowned toward the end of the first event, which was kind of a triathlon type deal. And I just wanted to give him a special shout out because, man, it was a real wild situation, and a competitor passes away. Seen this happen before, whether it's triathlons or Ironman competitions, where when you get in water or you get in extreme heat and you're talking about high endurance level events, crazy things can happen. And in the very first event of the entire CrossFit Games, Lazar Dukic, who had really strong experience in the pool. He was a former water polo player. I mean, this guy, we're talking about some of the most elite athletes on the planet. It was a very scary situation. They did finally retrieve his body, and the games for like 12 hours were suspended, and you didn't know if you were going to continue. But I just wanted to say that it was a really tragic situation. They did resume competition on Friday. I stayed with them all through Friday, came back on Saturday, and just eerie, just odd. A lot of high-profile athletes decided to withdraw in tribute at that moment. His brother decided to continue competing, even though he didn't necessarily agree, he said, with the decision. So it was a very, very weird situation. And at the end, Tia Claire Toomey, who's an Australian lady, 31 years old, she was 6 years in a row had won this thing. She took a year off last year, Mo, for good reason. She gave birth to a baby, and she came back. She wins. She has competed at the Olympics in weightlifting, almost qualified for the Olympics for Australia, and bobsledding as well, kind of a dual Olympian almost. She wins for the women. James Sprague, a younger kid from the Southeast, wins on the men's side, but just very, very tragic situation and kind of threw everything out of flux. And so for an exciting trip, it really was overshadowed by an unfortunate tragedy there in event number 1 Thursday morning.
You know, that really is unfortunate, and our condolences go out to the CrossFit community. Obviously, that's tough. And like you said, right at the start of the event like that I imagine that made it really, really hard for a lot of folks to either, to continue, and obviously not everybody did, like you said. So our thoughts are with those who were affected by that loss for sure. Interesting situation, and not to this degree, over in Greensboro this weekend, as the Wyndham Championships PGA tournament, was impacted by Tropical Storm Debbie. They did not play the first round on Thursday, and they were just out of whack from that point forward. Earlier this morning, Matt Kuchar played his final hole of the 54-hole event because darkness overtook him late yesterday, and he was unable to finish it up. He was the only player to finish or to not finish on Sunday as a result of darkness. Opted to come back and play his final hole this morning. In fact, I think they said it took him 6 minutes to finish up. Sailed his tee shot Sunday to the left. Didn't have enough time to assess his options, so he decided to just come back Monday when he could see and finish things up. Came back this morning, dropped, hit his approach shot short, hit the flagstick with his third shot, and tapped in for a par 4 again in 6 minutes. But it earned him a top 12 finish in the tournament and a paycheck of $135,000. So I'm not sure what the impact would have been of him just calling it quits yesterday, but I assume that it would not have resulted in a top 12 finish. He also moved up 10 spots in the FedEx Cup playoff field to 103. He's got to finish in the top 125 to keep his tour card. So all in all, I would dare say the former Georgia Tech golfer made the right choice in coming back this morning, but he was terribly apologetic for the inconvenience it created for everybody that had to come back for him to play 3 strokes.
Yeah, and luckily there were some ramifications and implications, and thankfully he was apologetic, because everybody else is like, come on, man, we've already had the craziest week known to man. We're just trying to get
seriously,
out of here.
You seriously can't we just be done? Yeah.
So I mean, there was a little little something extra to kind of go into that, but yeah, I mean, imagine that too. You're sitting there, everybody's begging you to get done, and you're like, man, I've got, this is a big shot. I know, not necessarily for this tournament at this point, but I got a lot more riding on this than you guys may realize. So I'm going to take my time here. And apologetic at least about that. Matt Kuchar, one of the good guys to root for.
Who won that thing?
The English guy, Aaron Ray. And the only reason I know he won, Mo, is he won it. But this other guy, Max Grieserman, he had around like you and I probably would have out there. He had a wild stretch yesterday where he had an eagle, followed up by a quad bogey, followed up by a birdie, followed up by a double bogey. So I mean, his situation was just all over the place.
Literally,
I saw a clip yesterday where he missed 3 putts by the total of the 3 putts combined was like 6 feet. I mean, he missed 3 total putts within 6 feet, I think, on that quad bogey. I mean, it was a wild situation. So he ends up losing at that point. You're thinking he was maybe going to cruise to victory down the stretch after that eagle. And then, like you said earlier, hold my beer because a quad bogey, crazy tournament. And Aaron Ray gets it going for England to win as I believe FedEx St. Jude starts this week out in Memphis.
I believe you're right. Yeah. Okay. We were just talking a little college football a little bit ago. Couple of SEC schools will be without some key running backs this season, as it turns out. Texas' C.J. Baxter sustained a season-ending knee injury last week during practice. Tore his LCL and PCL. Gonna have to undergo surgery. Recovery time is 6 to 9 months. Rushed for 659 yards and 5 touchdowns last season, along with 24 catches for 156 yards. So tough situation there for Texas. He was their number 2 running back a year ago and obviously was going to see time this year. Meanwhile, Texas Tech has lost Reuben Owens for the year.
Texas A&M.
I'm sorry, Texas A&M. Yes, not Texas Tech. Texas A&M. Misspoke there. With what is reported as a significant lower body injury during a Saturday scrimmage. 743 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns, and was an SEC all-freshman selection last year. Led SEC freshman with 385 rushing yards and 249 kick return yards, and was going to be heavily relied upon behind junior Amari Davis, who rushed for 532 yards and scored 6 touchdowns last year, as well as Levon Moss. So they kind of had a 3-headed monster going at the run game and lost a piece of that with Reuben Owens. So again, suffered a significant lower body injury Saturday in Texas A&M scrimmage. So that was unfortunate. Mike Elko would not elaborate on what the injury was. I would imagine we'll get more on that later this week on the sophomore. So,
yeah, tough deal. And if memory serves me correctly, last year they had their starting quarterback got injured right at the end of camp too. So they've had a couple injuries. And reading this article, I didn't realize that they got E.J. Smith also on their running back room as Emmitt Smith's son has transferred from Stanford, so they got him in the mix. Kind of could be frisky. Running back, you hate to say it, but running back is potentially, especially for offenses, certainly Texas, where you're capable clearly of throwing the ball to a great success. That maybe is the one position offensively in terms of skill that you can maybe afford to have a setback, but doesn't make it any easier. That is for sure.
No doubt. Wade, you might have been out when we discussed, either myself and David Wilson or me and Blaine Keller. Los Angeles Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh was hit with a 4-year show cause by the NCAA as a result of some infractions impermissible contact with recruits and players while access was restricted during the COVID pandemic. Michigan's honorary captain for the August 31st season opener against Fresno State is former Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh.
Welcome back to campus, Coach.
And it's odd because it's like a tweet that I saw in response to this, Reggie Bush was banned from the USC campus. Is Michigan are they subtly thumbing their nose at the NCAA, or are they outwardly thumbing their nose at the NCAA? Because it's one of the two.
Yeah, I would probably venture to say this is probably more of an outward thumb, because, I mean, the timing is, if this had been announced, and it probably was in the works. I don't think the show calls came out on like Tuesday and then on Wednesday they're calling Harbaugh to come in and do this. I don't think they're to that level of pettiness. Maybe I'm wrong. So presumably there was some sort of legwork that was built into this already, but the timing is classic. Harbaugh is a lightning rod and is the oddest dude and finds himself in the weirdest situations at any given time. And so this is totally on brand for him. And yeah, the timing could not have been kind of funnier in that regard, that he's coming back as your honorary captain right after the show cause comes down.
Here's the thing. It's totally on brand for him. But for athletic director Ward Manuel to say, I look forward to having him back in Ann Arbor for that game. And I'm not sure that the NCAA is done with Michigan, are they?
I certainly hope so. We got the COVID protocol situation resolved, and now we've got the Connor Stallions situation basically done. So
I thought Sharon Moore still had some stuff hanging out there.
Yeah, I think the question is just how many games he most likely, what I assume is going to be a suspension. And so, that could range from 1 to 3, I suppose, depending on how level of nice they decide to play with the NCAA. And
well, if this is any indication,
yeah. So again, yeah, your suspension probably increases a game or two here, I would imagine. And Fresno State, like I said, they potentially had this in the works. You would assume. I don't know that they're that diabolical. Ward Manuel is probably in some regards kind of glad, from an athletic director standpoint, kind of glad that Harbaugh's gone, just not having to deal with a lot of the antics. So the fact that he's kind of he at least gave this one little throwaway line, right? I haven't listened to the pod, so I don't know exactly what all he expounded upon, but it seems like he probably would be ready to be done with the situation. But at least for now, yeah, feels a little, like you said, thumbing your nose at the NCAA for sure.
Yeah, and as petty as you might like to be, if you are Michigan or Harbaugh, I'm not sure that you want to challenge the NCAA's petty necessarily. So
yeah, that's the only downside of this is, they may still give Moore a game, they may not give him anything, but you're on the radar, and especially obviously following UT over the years, when you're on the NCAA's radar. You got to tread very, very carefully, because then all of a sudden some things that they either might let slip through the cracks on purpose, now all of a sudden those get looked at, or even worse, then they start going hunting for things. So you got to be on your P's and Q's going forward for sure.
You really do. I mean, when you are already on their radar, the thing that you want to do is try to get off of it as quickly as possible, not linger on it. And I'm just not sure that this is a move that helps along those lines. So be careful what you ask for, Michigan, is all I'm saying. Bengals first round pick Amarius Mims apparently strained his pec muscle during Cincinnati's preseason game this weekend. Played 16 snaps at right tackle. Did not allow a pressure in 10 pass blocking snaps, but again, strained a pec muscle and will be out for several weeks. putting his status for the Bengals opener against New England in jeopardy. Wasn't expected to start early in the year anyway, with Orlando Brown and Trent Brown at the 2 tackles. But again, number 18 pick overall out of Georgia, you'd kind of like to see him here over this next couple of weeks, and so that's not going to be the case. So, hate to hear that. That's going to do it for today's Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Glad to have Wade Neely back. We will be back with you again here at 2 o'clock tomorrow. So be sure and stop by. It's out. We'll see you then.